My dad is the most ghetto guy in the world, though. We had the maids over this week, and I had my Rolex GMT, which is this white gold, next to his yellow gold Datejust. And to hide it from the maids, he put them both together in one sock with nothing in between them. I was like, what the? I wanted to f***ing kill him. And sure as shit, there's a scuff on my
He puts it in the sock.
I'm like, are you kidding me?
All right, Dad.
He's like, oh, stop being a pussy.
I don't understand why you...
What is up, watch fam? I am Christian, the curator of the Theo and Harris Vintage Watch Shop.
I'm Michael, the curator of the Theo and Harris Vintage Watch Shop, and this video is sponsored by Squarespace.
More on them and why we love them later. Today we're going to be talking about some of the biggest news in the watch market.
Yes, you've seen it everywhere.
I will say I knew about it 2 weeks before.
I did too.
What? But from the same person.
Probably, yeah.
Yes, had to be. Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
And I didn't leak it because I'm super fucking reliable.
Imagine if we leaked it.
That would be so funny.
3-minute video.
To ruin a very important relationship for 21,000 YouTube views. For the $188 we make in AdSense.
We're clearly incredibly nervous. We're doing the Squarespace integration in that video. We're like, this video is sponsored by Squarespace.
Anyway, so we did know about it. We didn't tell you guys. Sorry.
Yes, sorry.
A lot of interesting questions being raised about the $20 billion, which is that the right number?
Nah, doesn't seem.
That's what people are saying. Like $20 billion gray market.
Yeah, and it was like 20, 25, 30, whatever. People can just say.
Sounds like a lot.
You could say whatever when on Chrono a watch goes for $80,000. You're like,
yeah,
wow,
right.
Add that in.
Yeah. So we're thinking about, well, what are the implications? And yeah.
And maybe it's a dumb point. Maybe I'm just saying it for the video. Maybe I'm not. You'll never figure it out. But the question that I want to talk about a little bit, but there's a lot of other implications, is if there is still remnants of a gray market and you can send a watch or your AD will buy a watch that goes to Rolex for, say, $10,000, you can gray market it for $12,000. Does this system work? Does this wheel spin?
Right. Why is it viable? Why would I give Rolex my watch?
Yes.
Good question. So let's talk about the facts before we get into some speculation.
Yes.
So Rolex just announced the other day that they are getting into the certified pre-owned business. This is something that people had been kind of, wondering about for a long time. This is something that I, believe it or not, I don't want to say the exact when, but I'm talking about probably 5 years ago. I think FP Journe announced that they were doing certified pre-owned.
And you're like, why?
And I was at a local bar in New Jersey, I believe with Spanish Rob, of all people. What's up, Spanish Rob, if you remember this. And I remember sitting there having a drink and saying at River and Rail Cantina, for the most overpriced margaritas in the world, that taste like piss. And I said, wow, what do you think? Because the most important thing about this, about FP Journe doing certified pre-owned, and any other brand doing certified pre-owned, is the direct implication is that there's a certified pre-owned watch, and then there's a used piece of shit, right? It's either CPO or it's something we just wouldn't touch. There's an implication.
Of course.
That yes, these things are equal.
Back, right.
They are both the same reference. One is worth owning, and one is
Dave's
jackpot.
watch. Yeah.
God bless you.
One is Dave's watch that you bought. The other is the watch that came back from Rolex. In Rolex's good graces, here you are.
Exactly. Yes. And cheap is cheap, and doing CPO, even putting the service aside, putting the fact that these two watches are different, and that's not always a good thing. In vintage, it's going to be weird.
Sure.
But people, the mass market, doesn't. The mass market has a natural, objection to budget shopping online for an expensive item. They would actually prefer to go into Rolex, spend more, or put Rolex aside.
Sure.
Omega's a great example.
I've said this before. The Speedmaster. I would love to go into the Omega boutique and talk to the people and make it an event.
And
I would love that.
Historically, you've been able to buy an Omega Speedmaster gray market online from a million different dealers for literally 30, sometimes even more % off of retail.
Of the newest model,
save
immediately.
thousands of dollars by just going online. But a lot of folks feel, I don't know who that's going to, even though in all likelihood it's going to be just fine.
Exactly.
Right? I'd rather just go into Omega. I'll spend the extra $3,000.
And I'll sit down. And if I'm going with people, I want to make it an event. Obviously this is a very specific set of people.
Right.
But there are a lot of them where it's like, well, I want to. This is special. I'm celebrating
Yes.
XYZ.
It's the comfort level, and then it's the luxurious feeling, right?
All the
While-
Omega people are going to know I'm buying a watch.
Exactly. When and I'm not the prime example here because I'm not really a gray market dealer, but there are gray market dealers. But even take me as an example, right?
Sure.
On the rare occasion that I meet a client to deliver a watch, on a very, very rare occasion, we'll have a great cocktail and we'll have a great conversation, and it's great. It's all great.
Yeah.
Right. And I pay, right. So whatever. That being said, we are not in we're in a great restaurant.
Yeah.
We're in public. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're sitting there.
I didn't welcome you into my boutique that
Didn't
I
take
spent
you in the
$14
back,
million.
right.
I didn't show you the watchmaker. I didn't give you chocolates with or a pen with your name on it. You can't do these things.
No.
But Omega, Rolex, all these other brands can do that.
Right.
They've got
Right.
the capability to give the pre-owned experience the equal, opulence of the new experience.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. I think the other interesting part too is the rule, or I don't even know what it would be called, that a Rolex has to be out for at least 3 years before it goes and gets CPO'd by Rolex.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. So
Why is that a rule?
well, so I don't know. I'm not really taking anything for face value.
Sure.
I think that this is a big shift.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the most important thing we can learn is that Rolex is opening up a very large door, and now that it's open, they can walk through it any way they like, and that
Right.
won't be as much news.
Right.
The news is
Right.
they got into the CPO business. The terms that they've set,
Oh,
I don't know.
I see what you're
I think those are
saying.
malleable.
But when everybody's reading about it, those are set in stone.
Right.
Because they have to seem correct, and this is the balance, and this is why
Yes.
it works so well. But when it's just a thing, whatever.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a thought. Forget about the year of the watch. That to me is almost immaterial.
Yeah, sure.
An important question is, will Rolex offer, because there's a big difference between taking in a CPO, taking in a watch to make it a CPO, and then retailing it back out, right?
That is my question.
They can take a watch in whenever they want. Rolex will have the largest stockpile of pre-owned Rolex ever, right? No one will have. They are playing with monopoly money.
Money you
They
can't
are
dream of.
fabulously wealthy. They're building a $1 billion new facility right now.
Right.
Okay. There's no such thing as money. Money is just numbers on a piece of paper to them.
You're right.
And it's a very Staten Island expression. Rich people, they don't have money. They got paper that they just move. That's it. Which is really the case.
Money makes
right?
money, yeah.
Money makes money. So the question is, will they retail back out watches that are also in the current production? Meaning, could I, as a retail buyer, walk into a Rolex boutique and say, I'm looking at a particular watch. Let's call it a green Submariner, right? The Starbucks.
Yep.
Will I be able to choose between a new one and a pre-owned one?
GMT.
That will be an interesting question. Now, if I could choose between that and a Hulk, that may be different.
Yep.
I'm open to that. Okay. Now, even further, let's say it's the Hulk and the Kermit, or the Hulk and the Starbucks.
Yep.
What's to say when that Starbucks comes in,
Yep.
that Rolex doesn't have a policy that says they need to now pull any direct comps. They need to pull the Hulk. Hulk is too close to the Kermit or to the Starbucks. We're pulling it. We're putting it back into the back,
Yeah.
and maybe we'll pull out a GMT. Right? I think that they're within their boutique, between new and pre-owned, there's not going to be very much layover when it comes to like important sports models. Now, day dates, I think that we'll have to make day dates.
As in, it won't be like, well, all of a sudden everything is full, and there's this green one, and there's
No.
that green one. There is this green one that is modern,
Right.
and then everything else, Rolex is gonna take it back home
Exactly.
because it
They
does
will
not
have-
matter to Rolex.
100%. They'll have a large safe in the back,
Yep.
and they'll say, okay, well, we just got a Starbucks in. Okay, we'll put it in that thing. We're gonna pull the Hulk back. We're gonna put out maybe a Zenith Daytona, or we're gonna pull out a whatever. Who knows what it is?
Right.
But not a direct comp, because when there's direct comps, new and pre-owned,
You get a lot of questions from buyers. Well,
Yeah.
why would I want the new one? Why would I want that one?
right? Or do
Right.
I want them at all? Because now it just seems so accessible.
And why are these used watches here? What's with this old wine? Bring us the newest wine you have.
And then the other question is going to be, well, I guess there are a couple of more questions here. How will these things be priced?
That is another huge question, because that is where the Rolex could kill the gray market. That is where they could, or that is where they could be like, no, that's, it's fine now because it's paying us back.
Yes. I think that Rolex allowed the gray market to do all of their dirty bidding, and now they're going to throw them largely in the garbage.
Yes. Which is not something... Rolex, from what we know, will throw anyone in the garbage.
Oh, yeah, Rolex cares.
And they do often.
They do.
And they are doing it right now.
Unless you're James Cameron, I don't think that Rolex is really caring. Right? Or Michael Bublé or Jackie Stewart, they don't care about gray market dealers in the middle of it. They just don't care.
Right.
We used you. We allowed... Our system had maybe intentional holes in it, meaning in like operating software that allowed for people to get, people to amass hordes of particular models in raising the prices, right? Because they were basically lying about the supply, right?
Yep.
They were creating demand by literally hiding all the supply. They when you couldn't get a Daytona, dealers had 35.
Exactly.
And believe me, a lot of them they were paying. They had a direct contact at an AD or multiple ADs, and they weren't paying 13 because that's what the dealer has it for. They're paying 15. All right, and they're listening for 35. Or,
go. And that's another interesting conversation. Is that Rolex? And we've said it too before. Rolex has really vilified the gray market.
Yeah.
We've vilified Rolex for this, not like having enough watches, when really gray markets and ADs have been also adding to that shortage. But it comes out at Rolex.
It's difficult. I mean, the largest culprit here, I gotta say, isn't Rolex. Rolex had a faulty operating system.
Yes. They could have closed it.
They could have closed it, but they didn't.
Yep.
But I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. The ADs, the ones that I know, did their best to make sure that watches went to good owners.
Yep.
They got tricked many times.
Yep.
Many ADs were felonious. But I think the only reason that the bad ADs had any reason to do what they did is because influencers in the watch industry created a narrative that of watches as an investment class. So people started buying them like they would buy anything.
Yeah,
right.
Of course.
So they had 4 Daytonas. I was talking to someone the other day that has a lot of clients in Silicon Valley, and now there have been a lot of layoffs in Silicon Valley.
Of course.
And they said, I know guys at Facebook that have safes of $1.5 million in watches.
Wow.
And what are they going to do with them?
Right. And they don't wear them. That's their investment.
No, it's just an investment class.
Of course.
And now watches have always been a really good investment class, but not the word watches, not any watch. Right. It was vintage collectible watches by prominent brands like Rolex, like Patek Philippe, like Cartier, like Vacheron Constantin, right? A couple of really new Rolex, that arbitrage flipping thing, that was never really going, that was flipping, right? That was never, no one really believed, no one that knew anything believed that this was a long-term investment opportunity. No one.
Right.
Even at the height of it, I could have made way more money if I jumped in that bandwagon. I was frankly afraid it wasn't a moral decision. I was afraid that I was going to be the one at the end of the day that got stuck with the bag.
Right.
That's my luck.
Right.
That's my luck. You're right. Michael, Christian, you never have any luck.
Christian's the worst luck I've ever seen.
And that's why I didn't do it.
Yeah.
But I said, even then, guys, there are better investments out there. There are way better investments. Your $100,000
in watches,
can go.
You're saying. Yes.
Oh yeah, in watches.
Yes.
You can buy a really great XYZ. The problem is you don't want to wear it because it's not your style. You want a new Rolex.
Right.
Well, too fucking bad. Do you want an investment or do you want something that you know what I mean? Like, so it became difficult.
Yes.
But those were the real, in my opinion, if you want to use the word criminal, which is a little bit. So it's a little bit dramatic, but those were the guilty parties. Those were the guys that fucked everything. Were these people that said, oh, this is the greatest investment class, blah blah blah. They. I think it was a trick. I think it was largely a trick.
Hysteria.
A little hysteria.
Yeah. This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Do you need a website or domain, or do you want Christian to tell you why you do?
Guys, I am only here because of Squarespace.
Yes.
I'll give you the elevator pitch.
Yep.
7 years ago, 8 years ago, wow, geez, in a couple months, 8 years ago,
Wow.
I wanted to start a company, but I really didn't have any money, and I had no technical ability to do web development. Still don't. 8 years later, I have none.
Right.
Okay. So for me, the idea of going public with a website was unaffordable. because I couldn't hire a developer, and
Possibly embarrassing.
and completely embarrassing and just not functional. And that's when someone sent me, well, they sent me to a different site first, which was a disaster, a competitor. And then they sent me to Squarespace.
Yes.
And Squarespace 100% not just saved the day, but laid the foundation for what would go on to be my entire life. Okay, Squarespace was not only easy to use. If I can use it, believe me, you can use it as well.
This man texts things to himself to remind himself. Of things.
He does. It was easy to use. Well, what does use mean? It was easy to build not only a functional, very functional, we do millions of dollars a year in sales, beautiful website. A website that people look at and say, wow, I know that had to be expensive.
That was fancy.
It wasn't. Now, we've carried this website
It
with
wasn't.
us. Frankly, it wasn't.
Right.
Because it's Squarespace, right?
Yeah.
A fantastic friend to small business, really to any business of any size.
Yeah.
So I don't only recommend that if you're starting a business, you go over to Squarespace. I recommend if you currently have a website and you're saying to yourself, kind of in the back of your brain, I probably need to invest some money into my
refresh. I needed this. I needed that. Right.
Take a look at Squarespace. Make an account and give them a shot because they're easy to use, they're incredibly functional, and they are beautiful. You will have, in no time, the refresh that you've been looking for.
Yes.
And I just couldn't recommend Squarespace enough, period, end.
Now look at I. So if you're interested in Squarespace, head over to squarespace.com/Theo Harris to save 10% off your first order of a website or domain.
Go do it.
If I have a Rolex, which we have a Rolex right here from
Right.
the T&H watch shop.
Yep.
If I have this Rolex,
Yep.
I'm making up numbers, and I can send it to Rolex. Well, I'll make it a bigger space too for $9,000.
Right.
Or I can sell it on the gray market, possibly or quickly for $13,000, for $12,000.
Right.
Why would I send it to Rolex?
But we don't know how Rolex is pricing things yet. We don't know.
Right. Speculation right now.
But we will definitely assume that Rolex will be paying less than gray market. Well, we can assume that. And the only reason that I assume that is because Rolex has something that the gray market does not have, which is the only thing you actually want, which is allocation.
Yes.
And Rolex will build out, I think, better, real, as opposed to what has already existed, which has been fake.
A list.
Yeah.
I've been on the list for 6-7 months now. It's
ridiculous.
No calls. Yeah.
It is. They will build out customer profiles like any good tech company would, right? And if you trade in your watch, you will, in all likelihood, have rapport points.
Sure.
You know,
instead of buying from an AD, it also is important to give something back to an AD once you are done with it.
Exactly right.
Yes.
I think that they will. I think that Rolex will turn this into a much more
social points or
social
whatever
points.
it is.
I really think that.
I know, it makes sense.
100%.
Wow.
100%. And I think that the ADs will have the ability to put more credit in your account.
Wow.
And the credit would be used to then get you an allocation. I think that is definitely
think of a world where, in order to get your dream Rolex, you are buying other Rolexes off the gray market and sending them to Rolex.
Right.
You're like, well, okay, I got this. Like, will that get me this?
Right.
Which is effectively, then scouring the gray market at the very least, because you're just taking watches and moving them away.
Yes. It's going to be really... Will you get a demerit, which you already in theory do, but do you really? Will you get a network-wide, which would mean through all ADs, a demerit if you're caught, again, recognized by all ADs in your customer profile for flipping a watch to the gray market?
So really, the biggest news here is, of course, what Rolex is doing, but the bones behind it all, in what you're saying, is the software that Rolex is building around
I think
this.
so. I think that's... Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that's it. That being said, why would someone... Okay, I will still continue to... as a client, forget about Theo and Harris, right?
Yep.
I am still the sort of person that would still buy pre-owned outside of Rolex.
Yeah.
Because I don't buy hype pieces.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I buy things that, I think are interesting and cool, and if I can't get them, then I don't buy them. And that's really it.
Yes.
I am not on any Rolex lists. I am bad at this.
You're a bad boy.
Bad Leroy Brown. I am bad at this.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't know if I'll be buying Rolex certified pre-owned.
Yep. Be interesting to see how things are shown.
I also know that they will be, in all likelihood, they will also be priced aggressively. I don't know what their pricing strategy is going to be out of the gate.
That's the next piece of news.
Because they can undercut everyone.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
In theory.
Of course.
They can also, they can undercut everyone.
Which, when you have all the money in the world, you could easily bring everybody else to their knees and then
But then if they bring everyone else to their knees, then what does that do? That will flood the market with a bunch of other watches. People will lose fortunes in Rolex. It's all very difficult. I would definitely need to be the student in this room. Like I can certainly understand, a lot of this, but there is so much I cannot even begin to really fathom about. I don't know. Am I misusing the word? There are economic implications and PR implications, and I would need to be a student to this.
Yeah.
So I do the best to give you my insight where I can, and I am definitely reaching the ends of the earth on that, because now we're getting into just, what does a 10-year plan look like if you're going to jeopardize tens of thousands of units of your product, with the understanding that the vast majority of the value of your brand is based in the fact that other people have propped up your product. I mean, what does that do over 10 years?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not that smart.
I don't think they know. I think they're like, this is our best guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Or will they just do it kind of small and it's just beneficial for a shopping experience and it doesn't shake up the gray market? I don't know. I really don't know. Because if you can't buy a CPO from Rolex, meaning if they're all sold out, what did it really do to the market?
Nothing.
It only really affects the market if there is inventory.
In fact, honestly, if you can't get a CPO, it's like, okay, so I can't get any Rolex from Rolex anymore. I just can't get one. So I have to go this way.
I don't think it'll happen. I don't think it'll happen.
You don't think the lack of inventory will happen?
I don't think the lack of inventory will happen.
Yeah.
I think they'll keep it tight.
Yeah.
They'll keep inventory very tight, which makes sense.
Yes. Strategically. Yes.
But I think that they will have just millions of units very, very quickly.
I think so too.
Yeah. And then it's their call how they show them.
I mean, you even said one of the things, they could just produce watches and be like, all right, we'll hold these for 3 years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They totally could do that. I mean, it's... Yeah.
Why would you? I don't know.
Well, you could. Right. That's another question.
Yeah.
Why? What would be the implications of that? Well, I could do it. Okay, that's number one.
We'll make $1.5 million, put $500,000 to the side, and in 3 years we'll release those.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't fucking know. It's bizarre.
It is
bizarre. It's bizarre. So yeah, that's the story.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing this. They will be phenomenal watches.
Yep.
That you can trust.
Yep.
I think one of the big reasons to not buy from a gray market dealer is I think a lot of them are a house of cards that are at any point ready to collapse.
Yep.
So when you're handing over $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 to someone who you don't believe is really that solid,
who's on the seat of their pants all the time,
that's scary. That's why that's scary to me. Because a lot of these guys, they don't even own their inventory. A lot of them. Mm-hmm. Some of it's on consignment. So for argument's sake, let's say I have there's a dealer that I'm looking to buy a white gold Daytona from.
Yeah.
Right, for argument's sake, $55,000 on the gray market. I'm making up a number.
Sure.
Okay. It's not his watch. Okay. That watch is on consignment. Right. He made $1,000. He made $2,000 for argument's sake on the trade. He makes his $2,000. I have my watch. Now let's say something goes wrong with this watch. Let's say there's a problem. Let's say it's a super clone movement. Let's say there's an actual issue, which happens
a lot.
And I call up the guy and I say, "Hey, man, this is f***ed up. Like, I took my watch to Rolex. Like, maybe you didn't do it on purpose. It beat me too. But like, this is a fucking fake watch.
Yeah, right.
Right? What's he gonna say? Here's your $55,000.
Right.
No, he's gonna say, I got $2,000 out of this.
Right.
Like, I can't really help you because a lot of these guys, I do not. But and it's not just one. Think about it at scale. And this has happened in the vintage world when guys have got involved in very questionable parts. Mm-hmm. Not one guy didn't come back for his money. 50 did.
Yeah, right.
And 50 guys
you have a watch bank run,
want $60,000 each. What are you going to do?
Right. What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? You're f***ed.
Yeah.
You're f***ed. So with Rolex, you're just never going to have that question of like, do I know this guy well enough?
Yeah, right.
It's
Yeah.
Rolex.
It's Rolex. It's daddy.
It's daddy, 100%.
It's daddy, and I want my milk.
It's daddy, and I want my milk. So so that's f***ing Rolex. Are you wearing a Rolex today? No,
Now I'm wearing a Zenith.
Why are
baby.
you so poor?
Gee.
You
Why
watch
are you
that
so
Discovering
poor?
Anna? Why are you so poor?
Are you wearing a Rolex?
today. Yeah, I am.
Oh, a steel one.
I'm wearing. Yeah, well, actually,
No, it's steel. Black dial.
Yeah. So,
It's steel.
so,
Just say it's
you know
steel.
what's funny is people are like, "Why did you get the black dial? It's such a stupid thing to do." The blue dial is way cool. I'm like, okay, so I like the black dial because it's like my dad's watch.
Yeah, right.
And they're like, "Please, idiot."
Please, it's steel, isn't it? You're like, no.
Yeah, it's steel.
I could easily say it's steel.
It's a super clone.
It's super good. It's fake.